Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today we have another exciting episode of Sage Advice from the Tractor Shed. Preppers for the longest have been talking about a new world order. Okay, I want to look at that from a common sense point of view. A new world order. A new world order is rising, but it's not a Build-A-Burger. It's not your standard. Don't believe all of the conspiracy theories, okay? A new world order is rising. So, let's talk about that. It's 1945. Japan has just surrendered. The world is in disarray. Germany is basically destroyed. France is basically destroyed. Heavy industry in England is basically, Great Britain is basically destroyed. Most of Europe is in disarray. Okay? Japan's industry has been destroyed. China has not had heavy industry. But the United States survived World War II with its industries still completely intact. Okay, so that made the U.S. globally dominant in manufacturing around the world. Alright, everybody else's stuff was destroyed. So the U.S. was the only world power that their stuff wasn't all tore up. Russia's stuff was all tore up. Germany had invaded Russia. All of their manufacturing base was destroyed. So Europe, in order to survive, if it was made, they bought it from the United States. Well, that created one of the largest industrial might countries in the world in the United States. And that dominance reigned until the 80s. Okay? Until about the 1980s. And then other countries' manufacturing started coming back online really well. Because it takes 10 or 15 years to build a big factory. And then you turn around and you've got that factory, then it takes you a while to get your clientele. So the U.S. had about 25 years there of no competition. It was full tilt boogie. Everything all at once, all the time. Okay? That was what was going on. So the United States was able to supply the world with everything. Fast forward to 1980, and the world was starting to come online itself. Alright? Russia was manufacturing. Germany was back to manufacturing. France was back to manufacturing. Great Britain was manufacturing again. Japan was manufacturing like crazy. Okay? All that was coming back online. So the U.S. started getting competition. When you have competition, you have to compete. So U.S. companies tried to drive labor down. Well, because of the standard of living in the United States, it's hard to drive your labor prices down. How do you do it? Well, mechanization. In the 50s, where I lived in Harlan County, Kentucky, I didn't live in the 50s. I was born in 63, so I'm 62. In the 50s, Harlan County, Kentucky had 80,000 people that lived there. Then they brought in mechanization, the continuous miner, the bolt machine, all that stuff. So they were no longer drilling into the coal and shooting it down with dynamite. There were still some small companies doing that, but for the most part, they brought in these things called a continuous miner. It's just a big machine that goes in there and cuts. Got these big rotating heads, and it cuts the coal, and then it comes out on a conveyor belt. One man could mine more than 50. Okay? Mechanization came to the coal fields. Well, by 1963, there were only a few mines running. And those mines all used mechanization. So there was a large out-migration. As a matter of fact, my dad left. And Mom, they took us in 1963 to Detroit, Michigan, where they were still making automobiles. Okay? The big three were still in operation. So that history, then they came back in the 70s because coal had hit a little boom. Coal's always been feast or famine. You either work 7 days a week or you're laid off. It's just one of those things because the price of coal fluctuates up and down. But in the 70s, we went back and there was a little coal boom. But by 2025 now, Harlan County, instead of 80,000 people, there are like 22,000 people live there. Because coal is mechanized. Well, that happened in factories too. Mechanization hit and factories had a hard time moving forward. So, and workers had a hard time. There were a lot of layoffs in the 70s and the 80s, and every so often we get a recession. Okay? Those are things that happen, the ebb and flow of the market. So, companies needing to lower those worker costs and able to compete, what did they do? They went to China. They went to Mexico. They went to Malaysia. Okay? About the only continent they haven't went to so far is Africa. And that's coming. Okay? That's where they can find cheap labor. That's where they'll start migrating to. The average workers since 1980 income in China has tripled, more than tripled. So companies are starting to migrate away from China and go to places like Malaysia and Vietnam, and eventually they'll get there. And then the next place for them to exploit workers with low pay is Africa. That's where they'll be going. Maybe South America, some of them, but not. I don't think so much South America. I think Africa is the new place for low tech industries to move to. Okay? Worker intensive industries. So that's where we're at today. Is manufacturing coming back to the United States? Probably not. But let's talk about is a new world order rising? Now, preppers use this New World Order as a scary, scary, scary term. They talk about things like the Bilderbergers and the Rothschilds, and okay, those are part of their talking points. Now, I don't pay attention to that. That's generally made up bull crap based on people's biases. So you have to look at, is there a new world order? Or in other words, is the world changing? Now, back in the 70s and 80s, we created something called the G7. And the G7 was the United States and basically Europe. Okay? Germany, France, the U.S., Germany, France, I just drew a blank. I hate it when I do that. But it's basically the United States and Europe, okay, called the G7. They left out Russia because of the Cold War. So they left Russia out of the G7. And used to, the G7 controlled about 40%, 45% of the world gross domestic product. Okay? 47% of the world's gross domestic product. Maybe as much as 52% at one time. And that is a world power. Okay? If you have most of the money in the world, you can become a world power. So the U.S., and I would call it an empire. we've had all kinds of little empires: the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire, the Russian Empire. Okay, there have been all these empires: the Assyrians, the Greeks, all right. There have been all of these little empires through history, and they rise and they fall, and so the American Empire was basically those things that were under our global financial influence. Not necessarily that we dominated them, but they were under our global financial influence. What is it we have worldwide? Something like 75 bases. I think it's more, but I can't remember exactly the right number. If I can remember it, if I can look it up, I'll put it here on the thing. The United States has used its military, gunboat diplomacy, for years and years and years to exert its financial control over the world. Well, that's an American empire. Okay? That's an American empire. Nobody calls it an empire because nobody likes that word anymore. So, but it was an American empire. So when you look at that, you go, okay, the G7 control most of the finances around the world. Fast forward to 2025. We have a new bloc group called the BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. 5 countries. Now, also joining them lately has been Malaysia and Vietnam and 2 or 3 other countries. I think there are 12 other countries: Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, that joined the BRICS. And what it is a trading group like our G7. Okay, it's a trading group, and right now the BRICS have a population. When you think about population, the BRICS have a population of about 1/3 of the entire world. Maybe half the entire world. Their population encompasses maybe half of the entire world. And their GDP, the gross domestic product, the total sum total of everything they output every year, is something like, I want to say it's like 43% of the world GDP. And today, our G7 only has about 28% of world GDP. The manufacturing base that the United States had a monopoly on has shifted. And now it's in China and India and Malaysia, and okay, those manufacturing, heavy manufacturing industries have moved. Can you buy a tractor that's fully made in America? And the answer is no. No. Can you buy a car that's 100% made in America? And the answer is no. Even our car companies are manufacturing in those areas. Even our tractor companies. You know, the tractor folks are all right? Think about it for a minute. The tractor companies, you think things like John Deere, but now when I worked at the technical college, and I taught basic electricity for diesel mechanics. I also taught basic physics for diesel mechanics. And all the engines in those John Deeres were Yanmars, made in China, or made in Japan. Yanmar, maybe made in China. I don't remember, but it's not made in America. All right, a lot of their engines were Yanmar, so it's hard to find a vehicle of any kind completely made in the United States. So that trading group, the BRICS, have become the dominant financially group in the world. They're also the largest bloc of population in the world. So is a new world order rising? Yeah, it looks like it is. So you have to be prepared for that and the implications of it. So when we look at the world and its implications, it's one of those things that it is very hard to predict what's going to happen in the near future. Now, I am 62, and my experience runs from 1963 to 2025, and nobody pays attention till they're 10 or 12 years old to anything. Most 12-year-olds don't pay attention to anything going on either. So really, you're a teenager before you start to see things, and you see them from a different perspective as a teenager than you see them as a 62-year-old man. I see a lot of things coming down the pike. Now, the dollar is the dominant currency in the world. Recently, our dollar has been downgraded. The value of the dollar does this all the time. It's up and down, as compared to other currency, because that's the only thing you can compare it to, is compare it to other currency in the world. So the dollar meanders up and down in its value, but the dollar has been the dominant world currency. Almost everybody trades in dollars. Okay? Almost everybody trades in dollars. But when you have a trading partner, you can trade in their currency as well. So the BRICS can start trading in rubles or in yen or in I don't know exactly what the Chinese currency is, or the Indian currency. I don't know what the Indian currency is. I think the Indian currency is still based on the British pound. So they may go off using the dollar, which will cause the dollar's value to drop. Okay? You got to look at that. They will put pressure on the world banks. All right? They'll put pressure on the world banks. They'll go, we own most of the world's GDP. You should start using our money as your basis of banking. Okay? Those are going to be some implications that may come about. You may start seeing American banks curtailing. I think Bank of America this week is shutting down like 8,500 branches. So that's something that's going on, and you need to be watching for that. It's just one of those things that there's going to be changes in the world's abilities and what the world is looking for. And technology. Technology is going to be the thing of the future. Technology is going to be the battleground. It's already the battleground. Okay? Hackers are hacking into our computer systems. We're hacking into their computer systems. If you think the U.S. doesn't have counter-espionage going on, wow. Okay? So, we're doing things, they're doing things. Technology is the new battleground. Instead of the Cold War that we used to have, and the space race and the arms races, now it's technology races. Everybody wants to come up with the new quantum computer. Everybody wants to be the first to come up with the new quantum computer. It will change the way they do business. and make them a powerhouse. Now, some preppers turn around and yell about the Bilderbergers, the space lasers, all this stuff, that this world order is going to change the planet forever. You ever heard that? You ever heard people screaming that at the top of their lungs? There are probably 50 videos about that very thing here on YouTube. And while it makes people's little brains go, maybe so, maybe, what's happening is it's an oversimplification of the world's problems and putting all the blame on a single group. That's what's happening. They're oversimplifying the world's problems, and it keeps you diverted away from seeing the way things really, really are. Okay? So you got to stay focused. Don't pay attention to these conspiracy theories about what's going on, and you can't prove this because they're hiding it here or hiding it there. The actors, they're just acting. It's fake. It's a deep fake. You know, you see it all the time. People worrying about those kinds of things when we've got some real problems that those people aren't really concerned about doing anything about. Okay? Real problems. Let's talk about some of the things that are really causing our planet and our economies to change. Okay, what we're witnessing from our living room every night is a change in the global order. All right, a change in global finances, a change in global structures, a change in allies. That stuff has been happening over and over and over through the years. As one thing rises, another falls. Okay, as one power rises, another falls. Okay, it's something that's been happening for a long time. The U.S. empire is declining. Okay, doesn't matter what our politicians do. Are we going to be able to bring back 75-cent an hour jobs to the United States? Think about it. Okay, use your little brain. Can we bring $2 an hour jobs back to the United States? Who's going to work for that? Okay? What's the definition of a corporation? A corporation is a group of individuals formed together to make money. That's their sole purpose. Their sole purpose. All right. Now, what's happening in the world? Well, climate change is real. And as the climate changes, it's going to cause people to migrate and move. It's going to cause desertification. It's going to cause droughts and famines and all kinds of stuff. It may create climate opportunities. Okay? It's going to cause economies to collapse. It's going to cause a whole bunch of things. But it doesn't happen today. And it doesn't happen tomorrow. It happens 10, 15, 50, 100 years from now. Okay? Climate change doesn't happen in a week. Normally, the climate changes over tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. But our climate's changed a lot in 100 years. I mean, a super lot, more than ever been recorded in recorded history that we know of. And we can go back a long time. So we're seeing that today. And it's going to require international cooperation, and some people can't cooperate. All right? Unless the wealthier countries decide to help them, they can't cooperate. They can't. They can't go, well, we can starve, it's okay. Humans don't work that way. Okay? They don't go, okay, we're going to take one for the team. We're going to let our country die. Baby, it don't work that way. So you have to be cognizant of that. When the climate changes, people migrate. Countries move. Countries change. Then there's the technology revolution. We have seen, I remember in 1985, I had a little Radio Shack color computer. Do you remember those? Any of you old timers? I had a Radio Shack color computer. It used a cassette drive, a regular cassette drive as a disk drive, and it had 4K, 4 kilobytes of memory. 4 kilobytes of memory, and it was about the size, I would say, a typewriter, but you young folks don't know how big a typewriter was in my day. It's probably about the size of a microwave oven. Okay, not as tall as a microwave, but a small microwave is about the size of that color computer. And today, 100,000 of those would fit in your pocket. This has more computing power than 100,000 of those color computers, CoCos. It should have more computing power, maybe 1 million of them. So it's amazing the way technology has changed. AI is going to change the way we do business. It's going to change tons and tons and tons of stuff. So it's going to change the way we do biotech. It's going to change the way we do surveillance. It's going to change warfare. All right? It's going to change warfare. And that's a scary thought in itself. Now there's going to be economic alignments. As the countries see their challenges, as oil runs out. Okay, oil is a finite thing. So as oil runs out, countries are going to be looking for alternative energies. They're going to be looking for alternatives. They may look at them violently. I think we're in something today I would call the gas wars. Quite a few years ago, I predicted the gas wars. It would be a group of small conflicts that the United States, China, Russia, all would be involved in because of the need for gasoline. And it would all revolve around the Middle East. Okay? You ready? Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, Libya. Okay? Gas wars. That's what they are. That's what history will call them in the years to come. History will call them gas wars. And that's what we've been in. We haven't won one of them because they're unwinnable. Okay? They're unwinnable. We lost in Iraq. We lost in Afghanistan. We lost in Vietnam. Okay? Those wars are unwinnable. Alright? We never entered Libya. We just dropped some bombs and let Libya do its own thing. So, yeah, those wars are fought in reality over corporations and gasoline. Alright? When Saddam Hussein took Kuwait, the United States went in because our gas companies were pumping oil out of there. Okay? We didn't go to save Kuwait. We didn't go because of this or that. We went because there was oil there and we were getting the benefit of it. That's why we went. That's why countries go. So, there are going to be resource struggles. The big thing right now is rare earth minerals. Okay? Rare earth minerals. Greenland has a lot of rare earth minerals. China has a lot of rare earth minerals. Ukraine has a lot of rare earth minerals. Okay? The United States has a lot of rare earth minerals, but we haven't developed ours like some other countries have developed theirs. But they're going to be very important for the new energy systems of the future. Thorium and things like that. It's going to be very, very important. Nuclear fusion. So, Yeah, those are going to be important things. And you see our government struggling with it right now. Okay? You know, bring the CHIPS Act, bring chip manufacturing back to the United States, because companies that make chips want to pay $3 an hour. Who in America works for $3 an hour? Alright? So, yeah. The U.S. will have to do that for reasons of national security. Okay? It's got to happen. Then there's a youth movement. The youth of today have grown up with the internet. I didn't have the internet as a kid. The internet was something new. I remember in 1986, I had something called a bulletin board system. People could call in with their computer and talk to my computer, and we could share files and download stuff, and it was on a modem. For you young people, the modem worked on the regular phone line. It dialed the number it wanted to talk to. So, but today, the youth have grown up with all the information in the world in their hand. You can find out almost anything. Yeah, it's 9:30. You can find out almost anything about the world in this little box here. But you have to be able to sort out which is fake, which is real, which is bull sugar. But they can do that. So they're demanding social justice. They're demanding equal treatment. You're going to start seeing the youth movement. It's a lot like the youth movement of the 60s. I thought about doing a video about the youth movement and what they want and what they don't want, and do they know what they want. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that, but y'all keep looking. That may be something I do. But the youth movement is happening just like the civil rights movement of the 60s, which was another youth movement, okay? So we've got those challenges. Okay, my final thoughts. A new global system is emerging. All right? It's going to change the way the world does business. It's going to change the way the world sees one another. Okay? Is it going to be democratic? Is it going to be a democratic thing? Is it going to be an authoritarian thing? Is it going to be a corporate thing? Because corporations and the wealthy actually run so much of government. All right? They run so much of government. In the words of Gecko, greed is good. Okay? In the movie. But you know, there are a lot of choices that are going to come up in the next 5 to 10 years. And I mean, they could be big choices. The governments have got lots and lots of choices to make. Do they become authoritarian? Can they control their populace? A good example, Joe Biden put these things on Russia, and the G7 did too, put these limits on Russia, what they could sell and what they could buy, and financial limits, and there was a whole bunch of sanctions that they put on. What did Russia do? They turned around and sold to India. They sold their oil to China. They sold it to Malaysia. They sold it to Vietnam. They sold it to Brazil. You see what I'm saying? They sold it to Cuba. They turned around and said, okay, we don't need your markets. The group that we've joined has more financial power in the world than you do, so we don't need your markets. Okay, y'all do whatever you want to. That's what happened. Okay? That's what happened. The sanctions did nothing but send Russia in with the BRICS. That's all it did. So that's how our new world order is going to be. The U.S. has always used its financial might to help keep people in order, but the U.S.'s financial might isn't as great as it used to be. All right, and that's happening for a whole lot of reasons. There's a whole plethora of reasons as to why that's happening, and that's beyond the scope of the video. Then there's a matter of what corporations do. And corporations are going to do what they do because corporations' main function is to make money. So they're gonna all you have to do to figure out what a corporation is going to do is follow the money. That's it. They're there to make money. That's the only purpose of a corporation. So, yeah, corporations are going to influence. They're going to peddle influence. They're going to lobby. They're going to, okay, that's what's going to happen. Then there's what your community's going to do. Local communities have more power than they give themselves credit for. Local communities can ease the burdens, but it takes local committed will, and sometimes that will is hard. It's especially hard in the coal fields. It would have been hard for coal operators to allow other industries to come in, because if a man can make $15 an hour going to a factory, he wouldn't go underground and work in the coal mines for $15 an hour. Okay, so the local community powers didn't want factories showing up at their doorstep. You know, people say, well, why didn't we get factories? Well, all the people that control the money in high natural resource areas who could actually put a factory in didn't want a factory because it affected their corporation. Corporations are about making money. Okay? Corporations are about making money. It's age old. So it takes a lot for a community to overcome corporate strangleholds. So then there's individuals like me and you. What can we do? Well, me, I hedge against inflation by growing a big garden. I do little things here that help us manage our finances better as inflation's coming up. You just have to pay close attention. Mind your money, mind your inputs, and mind your outputs. Could this new world order erupt into wars? It could, but I don't particularly see that, because when countries are politically, financially dominant, they don't have to go to war. So that's what's happening. So I don't foresee any wars except the little gas wars, maybe some wars like in Ukraine for access to the sea that Russia wants, and access to Ukraine's metals and wheat. Okay, Ukraine is probably the largest wheat producer in Europe. So bread's going to be very important. Okay, so Ukraine has that option. That's what Russia's doing there. That's what they're there for. It's all about getting Ukraine's resources. Not going to stop, not going to change. It'll all be these little wars. Afghanistan, we lost. Vietnam, we lost. Iraq, we lost. Okay? It's all going to be these little wars for only small amounts of resources. So, you can be prepared for that. Now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homestead stuff every week, sometimes once, sometimes 5 videos. Just depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. Now, if you hit the little bell, it's right up here when you come to the channel. It'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, with the occasional short on Friday, Saturday, and through the week. Now, time for me to get on to the next thing. I love you all.